I can't look at every Instagram thing to see what these kids are thinking about. But what I can do, I can limit their ability to obtain weapons. That I can do.
Note how the TV personality was yelling, hysterical, invoking the emotional death of children. His rhetoric wasn't designed to convince you with facts, logic, or reason, but to sway you using emotion. His illogical pitch was that your rights are getting others killed, that the innocent should be punished to stop the guilty. It doesn't add up, of course. It doesn't need to. It's not aimed at people motivated by logic. It's targeted at people who are actuated by emotion. His target audience is senses-based people. People who are moved by appeals to authority, by contrast, will listen to politicians. People moved by facts will listen to philosophers or scientists. Understand what sociology is. It documents how different institutions are used to manipulate the public. The politician's job is no longer to run the government. They've been demoted. Their sole job now is to engage in social control. They're influencers just as much as some YouTube influencer. That's their sole job now. Maintain order by creating new habits to ensnare gullible followers. The populace is being managed. It's a social management system. Our actual government is being controlled by unelected oligarchs above the politician level. They're the ones who write the legislation. Your politicians, who not only don't write the legislation, they don't even read it, exist to get you to do certain things that the oligarchs want you to do. Herbert Spencer in 1873 noticed that it's the job of various institutions to create new habits in a society. He makes a good point about how we're on autopilot most of the time, hypnotized almost by habit. We don't even know why we do certain things. For instance, why do you shake hands when you meet someone? That cultural habit started when 1,000 years ago strangers would pass each other on a road, and to show that they didn't have a sword, they would demonstrate that they had an empty hand by shaking hands. So why are we still engaging in this archaic practice? Likewise, how men tend to favor shorter hair. Why? That happened 3,000 years ago when Alexander the Great told his men to shear their hair because the Persians were grabbing it and slitting their throats on the battlefield. After that, short hair was associated with the military, hence with masculinity. Yet millennia later, we still sleepwalk into this habit. Or how about when you sneeze and someone says, "God bless you"? Where did that come from? This was a habit created by the institution of the church. In the Dark Ages, they believed that when you sneezed, your mind went temporarily blank and a demon could get inside. By saying "God bless you," they believed that they could ward off evil spirits. In a digression, Spencer complained about how train cars in England in his day were narrow because the tracks they decided to build them on were originally Roman roads, and the Romans only made the roads as wide as 2 horses' butts for their chariots. Several millennia later, we had this constraint because of a cultural habit that we don't even question. The past reaches out to the present and shapes it. At any rate, institutions exist to create these habits. Like when the last pandemic started, an institution started talking about a new normal, and how masks would be as normalized as pants or shoes. It was their job to craft this new habit, to create new established institutional patterns. And my epiphany was that to make the habit all pervasive, it wouldn't do to just craft one talking point and advance it using one institution. Rather, to get full spectrum coverage, they would rely on institutions that address themselves to the 3 basic personality types in the population: thought-based people, honor-based people, and senses-based people. For senses-based people, they paid YouTube influencers and celebrities to normalize it. For honor-based people, they rolled out politicians and had them tell the public that it was the honorable thing to do, for the greater good. And for truth-based people, well, they struggled with that one. One of the biggest demographics to remain skeptical were people with PhDs. People who based their actions on facts were vastly harder to sway. But our social engineers tried to do it anyway with organizations like the CDC, which masqueraded as science. By calling on the power of all these institutions, they covered all the bases. At any rate, just thought I'd share this insight, because the true struggle in life is not to be a sleepwalker actuated by habit. Habit is rooted in the back of the brain, in the basal ganglia. Conscious thought, by contrast, is at the front of the brain in the prefrontal cortex. Philosophy tries to get you to use that as much as possible. It's called executive function. The charlatans and conmen would prefer you to depend on the back of the brain, on habit. But maybe you need to drop them, like a bad habit, instead. New American Magazine is guided by our support of the U.S. Constitution and the principles upon which that document is based. We want to restore and retain the values and vision that made America great: limited government, the freedoms our Constitution guarantees, and the personal responsibility a free people must exercise to stay free. To learn more or to subscribe to our magazine, visit thenewamerican.com.